Hello, Brains? I'm running a little late today because dang it! Where are my pants? Actually, I'm gonna be about half an hour late. Hello, Brains! Getting out the door and where we need to be on time is a huge challenge for ADHD brains. When I was a kid, I made us late all the time because of stuff I forgot until right before we left, or 5 minutes after we left. As a teenager, it was almost impossible for me to wake up in the morning. And as an adult, I've been late so many times I've lost friends and even jobs. But now that I work for myself, it's even worse. I can lose an entire day trying to get ready if I'm not careful. These episodes are pre-recorded. You can't tell when I'm recording them at midnight. Yay, total lack of accountability. So, first of all, if you're struggling with this, give yourself a break. This is something that most of us struggle with. Here are a few of the ADHD-related challenges that make something as simple as getting ready on time a serious battle. It's a challenge. Second of all, there are strategies that can help, which I have also been implementing successfully, I'm happy to say, because honestly, I got really tired of recording at midnight. So, since most of us are behind on something right now, or a lot of some things, I'll get right to it. Here are the top 5 tips I've found for how to get out the door on time. 1. Do as much as you can in advance. The more we do ahead of time, the less we'll have to do in the morning when we're groggy, probably haven't slept well, and our meds and/or coffee hasn't kicked in. Bonus, when we do things ahead of time, our brains actually use a less impaired executive function system, the cool executive function system, instead of the hot executive function system we use in the heat of the moment. In other words, it's easier to make better choices. I've linked to some great articles about this in the description below, but for now, here are some ideas for things that you can do ahead of time. Lay out your clothes the night before. Pack your lunch the night before. Put everything you'll need to take with you on a launch pad by the door. Write out and/or check your schedule for the next day. Finally, and this is legitimately what got me through high school, if you take ADHD meds, take them half an hour before you have to wake up so that you're medicated when you have to start your routine. You don't have to do everything in advance, but at least try and tackle the things that tend to trip you up. The goal here is to remove as many barriers as possible so that you don't spend your morning running into them. 2. Put on your time glasses. ADHDers tend to be time blind, or as I like to put it, experience time nearsightedness. Basically, we have a terrible sense of how long things take, which is why we tend to overestimate how much we can get done and still leave on time, or how long we can wait before we have to get started. It's not that we're being irresponsible, it's that time looks really fuzzy to us, especially when something is far away. And because we are time nearsighted, we have a very different definition of what counts as far away. It's not our fault, but it is our responsibility. Set timers, have clocks everywhere, wear a watch. The time timer is really great because it's very visual. ADHD coach Eric Tivers also recommends working on your time vision by predicting how long something will take, writing that down, then doing it and seeing how long it actually took. In the meantime, recognize that being on time is actually really hard because it's a very small target to hit. Most ADHDers I've talked to who don't run late do it by aiming for early. There are issues that can make being early challenging for us, like an incredible intolerance for boredom, which is a whole other episode, but at least logistically speaking, it's way easier to hit a bigger target. Personally, I try to be done with my morning routine half an hour before I actually need to leave for work. That way I can run late without being late. 3. Build a routine. One of the things ADHD brains have a lot of trouble with is called set switching, or transitioning between tasks. We get stuck on one, or we have trouble figuring out what we're supposed to do next. Having a routine can help with that and make those transitions smoother, saving us a lot of time and mental energy. This is easier said than done. I've been using an app called Brilly to help me set and stick to my routines. It was developed by the parent of an ADHD child, and it's brilliant. You set up your child's routine ahead of time, or your inner child's routine, because there is absolutely nothing wrong with parenting yourself. And when you're ready, click Start Routine and swipe left every time you finish a task. If you beat the clock, you've got time left to do fun stuff. If you're running late, it automatically adjusts to make sure that you still get out the door on time. If you run into a task you can't do because maybe somebody's in the bathroom at the moment, you can swipe right and that task will come back in your routine later so that you don't forget it, which is very helpful for things like put on deodorant. If you set a time for when the routine needs to be finished and what days of the week it's for. It will even remind you that it's time to get started. By the way, totally not sponsored, just totally obsessed. To the point that I have convinced the fine folks at Brilly to make a version specifically for adults, but they don't have a lot of resources, so if you can and want to support them, I highly encourage it. They also offered a free month and a discount for anybody from the channel who wants to sign up. There's a link in the description for that as well. You can also check out my episodes on how to build routines here. 4. Use cues to stay on track. Ever walk into a room and forget why you walked in? Everyone does, but for those of us with ADHD, it happens a lot. What's happening here is we have a more limited working memory, meaning the ability to hold information in our heads while we work with it. An easy way to help our brains out is to give them clear cues as to what they're supposed to be doing in each room as we get ready. Good cues are non-judgmental and clear. Brilly does this for me really well, but examples of other good cues are Post-it notes, sticker charts, leaving stuff out where you can see it, setting reminders on your phone, even having a playlist of songs and knowing at what point in your routine you need to be by a certain song. Examples of bad cues: phone alarm that just says alarm, cues in the wrong place where you can't actually act on them. I have no idea what this was supposed to remind me of. 5. Incentivize yourself. None of these strategies are going to work if we don't have the motivation we need to use them. A lot of the time, whatever we're getting ready for is not nearly as exciting as what we could be doing instead of getting ready. ADHD brains need more motivation than neurotypical brains because our brains don't naturally reward us with piles of dopamine for doing something as mundane as putting on pants. So if we do manage to put on pants and make it out the door on time, we need that effort to matter. And not like eventually. Delayed consequences, positive or negative, don't work for us because again, we experience time differently. Since most natural consequences are delayed, it's important that we create ones that aren't. It feels silly, but according to Dr. Barkley, one of the leading researchers on ADHD, adding immediate accountability and incentives for someone with ADHD is like building a wheelchair ramp for somebody who needs a wheelchair. It's not a luxury, it's necessary. For kids, that incentive might look like half an hour of video game time if they get done early enough. For adults, that might look like stopping for a fancy coffee on the way to work if you leave in time. I put my meetings in the mornings so that I'm incentivized to get to work on time. If I earn enough stars in Brilly, I get to go get a massage. The key is to find incentives that are motivating and that you can actually give yourself. If I never go get that massage, it's gonna stop working. And by the way, it still might. The key is to find incentives that are motivating and that you can actually give yourself. One of the most challenging things about ADHD is that nothing is ever the last solution. Managing ADHD is a constant reevaluation of strategies because once the newness wears off, they're harder to stick to. It's really hard to predict what's gonna work and for how long. The goal here isn't to be perfect. It's to figure out what kinds of things tend to work for us so that when we need to tweak things, we can. To develop our ADHD tool belt so that we can get better at working with our brains, not against them. I hope these tips help you do that. Add your own tips in the comments below. Share this video if you think that it might be helpful for someone you know. And of course, click all the things so that you don't miss the next video on how to get someone with ADHD to do what you want. Thank you so much to my brain advocates and all my Patreon brains for giving me the incentive to keep making these videos. And thank you to my team behind the scenes for providing the accountability I need to stay on track. I will see you all next time. Bye, brains!